Have you ever found yourself, really imagining achieving a big goal? Maybe it's something like nailing a job interview or doing great on a tough exam, or even just feeling more confident walking into a new situation. Well, what if I told you there's this powerful, maybe even surprising technique that lots of successful people use? We're talking top athletes, CEOs.
Yeah.
They use it to help them get there.
Oh, absolutely. And its power is, I think, often really underestimated. What's so interesting, maybe a bit counterintuitive, is how our brains can sometimes, blur the lines between what's real and what we just imagine. And it's right there in that blurring that this technique gets its strength.
Right.
And this isn't just, wishful thinking. There's some fascinating neurology behind it, which we should definitely explore.
Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. Visualization. Basically, is using your imagination to kind of see your success before it even happens. So we're going to unpack how it works, look at the science behind it, which is pretty surprising, and share some really compelling examples from people who absolutely swear by it. So, let's unpack this. How does this mental trick actually work, neurologically speaking? Maybe let's start with a story, something relatable. Imagine a basketball player. Let's call her Sarah. Before her games, she actually closes her eyes and she vividly pictures herself making these perfect shots, feeling the ball, hearing the crowd, even that swish sound of the net. Now, this isn't just like daydreaming. She's actively training her brain.
Exactly. And connecting Sarah's experience to the science. What's truly fascinating here is what neuroscience shows us. When we vividly visualize doing something, our brain activates the very same regions it would use if we were actually physically doing it.
The same regions?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yes, the same ones, which, raises a really important question about what practice even is, doesn't it? There is this famous study, maybe you've heard of it, about piano practice.
Oh, yeah, I think I know the one you mean.
Right. So people who only imagined practicing the piano showed almost as much improvement in skill as the people who actually sat down and physically practiced.
Wow.
It really suggests the brain, it almost literally doesn't know the difference between vividly imagined practice and the real thing.
Okay, that piano study always gets me. My first thought was, great, so I can just imagine cleaning my apartment.
If only it worked quite like that for manual chores.
Yeah, I figured. But still, it really makes you think about the brain's potential, doesn't it?
It does. And while it might not clean your apartment, it has huge implications.
So the practical side of this, it means we can actually mentally train for success even before we take any physical action. So take, for example, if you're preparing for something like an English speaking test.
Yeah.
A high-stakes one. You could visualize walking confidently into that room, smiling, answering questions clearly. You could even visualize staying calm if you, say, forget a word. Just taking a breath and then continuing smoothly.
That's a perfect application.
And over time, if you do this consistently, your brain starts to almost believe this story. Is that fair to say?
It's more than just belief, although that's part of it. Your brain is literally building and reinforcing those neural pathways. It's like creating a blueprint.
A blueprint. I like that.
Yeah, so when the actual situation happens, it feels familiar. Your brain has, in a sense, run the simulation already and knows the sequence.
Your body just follows.
In a way, yes. The mental rehearsal primes the physical action and even helps manage the emotional response, like anxiety. And that belief component you mentioned is absolutely crucial too. Often it's the first step. If you can genuinely see yourself achieving something in your mind's eye, you start to believe it's actually possible. And that belief is what fuels you to take the necessary action. It's often the barrier we need to overcome first.
Absolutely. And I've heard some amazing real-world stories about this. I know somebody who used visualization before a really important job interview. They imagined the whole thing, walking in confidently, the handshake, answering questions really smoothly. They even imagined the smell of the coffee in the waiting room. That level of detail.
That's key, the detail.
Yeah. And they said when they actually went in, it felt weirdly familiar, like their brain had genuinely already been there. Mm-hmm. And that just massively reduced their nervousness.
That feeling of familiarity is fascinating, isn't it? Neurologically, that's the pathways firing, the ones built during visualization. It feels familiar because to the brain, it is familiar.
Right. And another person I spoke to did something similar for their IELTS speaking test. That's the English language test.
Yeah.
They just kept visualizing, smiling, staying calm, speaking clearly. It didn't mean they were suddenly perfect, but it stopped them from panicking when they stumbled. And for them, just not panicking was a huge win.
Those are great examples, and they really echo what we see at the highest levels of performance. It connects directly to what elite athletes do. You mentioned Michael Phelps earlier.
Yeah, the swimmer.
Exactly. He famously would swim the race in his mind every single night before bed, visualizing every stroke, every turn, the feel of the water. And what's incredible there is not just that he did it, but the level of detail and the sheer consistency day in, day out.
That consistency must be crucial. It wasn't just a one-off thing.
Absolutely. He wasn't just vaguely thinking about winning. He was mentally rehearsing every single element of a successful race.
So it's like, it really is training your brain before you even train your body, or maybe alongside it.
Alongside it, yes. It enhances physical practice. It doesn't typically replace it entirely, especially for complex motor skills. But it makes the physical part more effective.
And it's not just for big things like sports or tests, right? This could apply to everyday life, too.
Definitely. Think about having a difficult conversation you're nervous about. You could visualize it going calmly, visualize yourself staying composed, finding the right words.
That's a good point. So even for social interactions, and underlying all of this seems to be confidence. If you can see yourself doing something successfully, even just in your mind, you start to believe it's actually possible. And that belief itself is incredibly powerful. It makes the real thing feel much less daunting.
Precisely. So just to kind of wrap up the core idea here, visualization isn't some, fluffy feel-good exercise. It's a genuine technique that physically engages your brain. It makes it practice success. It really highlights this profound link between our mental world, our imagination, and what we can actually achieve in the real world.
It's a mind-body connection, but maybe deeper than we usually think.
Absolutely. By mentally rehearsing these desired outcomes, you are literally priming your brain and your body for success. It makes challenges feel, more familiar and definitely more manageable when you encounter them for real.
So let's circle back to that core scientific insight. If our brains, as the science seems to suggest, don't really make a strong distinction between vividly imagined practice and actual physical practice, what does that truly mean for how you, listening right now, approach your own goals, big or small?
It's a powerful question to ponder.
Yeah. I mean, given this incredible capability that your brain has, how could you start using visualization, maybe more intentionally? How could you use it to prepare for challenges or opportunities you see coming up, or maybe even ones you haven't thought about yet? And think about the details you'd include, like that coffee smell example. What would make your mental rehearsal feel as real as possible?
The more vivid, the more effective, generally speaking.
It really just leaves you with a sense of wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About the potential locked away inside our own minds. All right, let's picture this for a second. You're standing there, right? Big moment coming up. Maybe it's, I don't know, that huge job interview you've been prepping for. Or maybe it's an exam like the IELTS or TOEFL.
Yeah, high-stakes stuff.
Exactly. Or even just, trying to finally get that new healthy habit to stick. You feel that pressure building up, right? That need to perform.
Definitely a familiar feeling for most people.
Well, today, we're going to do a deep dive into a, frankly, pretty remarkable mental tool. Something that can totally shift how you handle those moments.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
We are talking about visualization techniques for achieving goals. And our mission, really, is to get past any skepticism you might have.
That is this for real feeling?
Yeah. And really unpack how forming these clear mental images just in your head can actually make a big difference in your real-world success.
Sounds good. What's our source material like for this?
It's pretty practical, actually. Gives a direct look at how visualization works, the benefits, and importantly, some specific ways you could start using it, like right now.
Okay, so let's start with the basics then. What exactly is visualization?
Right. So the core idea is simple. It's the act of forming a clear image in your mind.
And what's really fascinating is how powerful that simple act can be. The material mentions elite athletes.
Yeah.
They're constantly doing this before a big game. It's not just physical warm-up. They're like creating this mental movie of success, rehearsing it all in their head first.
When I first bumped into this idea of visualization, I got to admit, I was a bit skeptical.
Oh yeah? How so?
It just sounded a little bit, our source uses the term woo-woo.
Huh. Yeah, I know the term. A bit out there, maybe. Not very scientific sounding.
Exactly. Sort of mystical. I used to think, really? Just thinking about something is going to make it happen. Felt a bit flimsy.
That's a super common reaction, honestly.
But then, I started looking into the practical side, like in performance psychology, and my perspective really did shift. So help us out here. What makes this more than just, wishful thinking?
Well, that initial perception is understandable, but the focus here and in our source is squarely on tangible results. It's not about mysticism.
Yeah.
If we look at the bigger picture, it connects to this cognitive process called priming. It's quite real.
Priming. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Think of your brain as this incredibly complex pattern-matching machine, right?
Uh-huh.
When you vividly visualize yourself succeeding, you're essentially feeding it a successful pattern. You're showing it what success looks like, feels like.
So you're kind of preloading the software.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. You're creating or strengthening these neural pathways for success. So when the actual situation comes up, your mind and body are, well, primed to follow that pattern.
Okay, so the brain's already seen it. It's not totally new territory.
Mm-hmm.
Reduces the unknown element.
Precisely. It's better prepared.
So it's not really about tricking your brain then. It's more about preparing it. That makes sense up here, Taps it. But what does that actually feel like in a real situation? How does that priming show up?
It often shows up as this deep sense of familiarity and control.
Familiarity, even in a new situation.
Yeah, exactly. The insights from our source point this out. Visualization can make unfamiliar, maybe even intimidating situations feel, well, familiar.
How does that work?
Imagine visualizing a room you've never been in, but in really fine detail. The layout, the light, maybe even the sounds.
Okay.
Then when you actually walk into that room, it feels like you already know it, like you've been there before.
Ah, I see. That sense of knowing it would definitely cut down on the anxiety.
Exactly. That familiarity is incredibly powerful for reducing anxiety and preventing that horrible panic response. That sudden fear where you feel totally out of control.
Yeah, definitely want to avoid that.
It's why someone might genuinely say, like the source suggests, I didn't panic during the test because I had visualized it. Their brain had already done a walkthrough.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And that must tie into confidence too, right?
Directly. It absolutely helps build confidence, that solid belief in yourself, especially before something high stakes, like that job interview I mentioned.
So how does that leap happen from just seeing it in your mind to actually believing you can do it?
Our source material is really clear on this connection. It says, if you can see yourself doing something successfully, you start believing it's possible.
See it, then believe it.
It's crucial. If you're mentally rehearsing that interview, you're seeing yourself answering questions well, feeling calm, looking confident. Your brain starts to accept that successful outcome as a real possibility, maybe even likely.
It's like exercising a belief muscle in your mind.
That's a perfect analogy. You're training that belief.
And here's where it gets really exciting, I think, especially for you listening, because this isn't some exclusive club for athletes or CEOs.
Not at all.
The material we looked at really emphasizes how broad the applications are. You can use visualization for exams, IELTS, TOEFL, you name it.
Big ones.
You can visualize yourself speaking English more confidently, maybe before a presentation or just a tough conversation.
Oh, that's a great application.
Job interviews, obviously. But also, like we said, building new habits, tackling new challenges at work or home. It's really for anyone.
The possibilities are huge. And it's not just about having a vague, fuzzy idea of success either. For this to really work, you need specifics.
Right. Details matter.
And our source gives us some really useful phrases to practice. These aren't just slogans. They guide the kind of mental imagery you should be aiming for.
Oh, cool. Like what?
Well, things like thinking, visualization helps me prepare mentally. Simple, but focuses the intent. Or this one I really like. I imagine the whole scene like a movie.
Ah, like a movie. That really paints a picture, doesn't it? Full sensory experience.
Exactly. It emphasizes the detail, the engagement, not just a static photo, but a dynamic scene.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're creating this whole internal film, and then you get that feeling later, like it felt so familiar when I arrived, because you'd already run that movie countless times in your head.
Precisely. Or looking back after you faced the challenge and realizing, I didn't panic and that was a win.
Yeah, because that mental rehearsal actually worked. It all feeds back into that core idea from the source. Belief is the first step towards success.
Which brings us neatly to refining your practice. Because just doing something called visualization isn't always enough.
Right. It's not just that you do it, but how you do it.
Exactly, and how you even think or talk about it. Our source points out some common mistakes, or maybe pitfalls is a better word, that can make it less effective.
Okay, good to know. Like what?
Well, one thing is that lack of sensory detail we just touched on.
Yeah.
Imagining it like a movie means bringing in sounds, feelings, maybe even smells, not just the visuals, making it rich.
Right. Immerse yourself in it. Okay, what else?
Precision in language, even in your own head, seems to be key. This is where it gets really interesting, actually.
How so?
Well, instead of thinking something generic like, I did visualize before a test, the source highlights using the definite article, I visualized before the test.
Huh. Why does that little word matter so much?
It makes the event specific, concrete, not just some vague general test, but that specific challenge you're preparing for. It focuses the mental rehearsal much more effectively.
Wow, okay. That's subtle but powerful.
It is, and the same applies to the outcome you're visualizing. Instead of something grammatically a bit off like, visualization make you success.
Yeah, that sounds a bit awkward.
Right. The phrasing should be more like, visualization makes you successful. See the difference?
Yeah, it shifts from the action to the state of being successful.
Exactly. You're focusing on the state you want to achieve. And one more on precision, reflecting accurately on past experiences. So if you did panic, it's better to acknowledge, I panicked during the exam, using the correct tense and the specific article rather than a vague, I panic in exam.
Why is that important? Seems counterintuitive to focus on the panic.
It grounds the experience in reality. It helps your brain properly process what happened and learn from it, making your future visualization for not panicking even more targeted and effective. It's about accurate self-assessment to improve future performance.
Got it. So the clarity of the image, the precision of your internal language, it all adds up.
It really does. The detail and the narrative you build internally are crucial.
Which I think loops us back beautifully to that core message running through all the material we looked at.
Which is,
If your brain has already seen success, your body will follow.
it's a powerful statement. Simple, but profound.
It really is. And it leads to that fantastic little mantra. Believe it, picture it, do it.
A perfect summary. Believe, picture, do.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. If our brains really are this powerful, if they can influence our actions, our outcomes, just by seeing success beforehand, what other subconscious abilities might we be underutilizing? Beyond just achieving specific goals, what else could you potentially pre-experience in your mind to unlock more of your potential?
That's a fascinating question to leave people with. What else can that mental rehearsal unlock?
Exactly. Something to definitely mull over.